And in case you're wondering how much noise it makes with the reducing gear, this is at the high speed at the 24 volts. So it's quiet. And then if you're sewing anything at 12, it's much, much quieter again. So I'll just use the foot controller to show you. So it's very quiet there, you can see at the slow speed. Here's something a little different. I've been pirating a few machines to try and see if I can come up with a solution for a long-term sewing. No matter what I've done with the 110 or 220 volt old style sewing machine motors, they get really hot, even with a digital foot. And sometimes the digital foot doesn't get hot, but the motor gets very hot, so you have to take long breaks. Now, one of the things is that a lot of the embroidery machines have these more contemporary type motors, which, yes, granted aren't as powerful than some. They're pretty good on the whole, but they are meant to run for hours on end. So if you think about when you throw your embroidery machine into gear, and it might take 3 or 4 or 8 hours and it's going to go non-stop. I thought, maybe I could take one of those motors and somehow pirate it into something that would work. So this is the 20U. Now the thing with the 20U is you need everything from super slow to super fast. Now why people don't manufacture digital type motors for these machines is just beyond me. If I were an electronic genius, I would come up with something, but I thought I'd cobble something together and figured out. So this is from a Husqvarna 980, so not an embroidery machine, but certainly a motor that you see in most of these machines. I took this reducing gear, which is not strictly necessary, but to get me the slow control and power, I thought I should have it. And this came out of my spare Simplicity felting machine. I had one which I thought, well, I'll use it. And then this cabling here, which is a little hard to understand because I've taped it to death, but I took the switch off of the machine. Here's the foot controller, and here's the power. So I put them together so that I could switch it on and off. As you can see, it's on at the moment. And then I did something a little weird. So the one thing I never really liked, this is a bit ugly, a lot of my solutions work very well but aren't always the most beautiful. This is original foot controller. I don't like the way it works very well. When you use it, it's always engaging the voltage resistor, so that foot tends to get hot. Plus, it doesn't release the full power. So what I did is I took a switch for doorbell, and I've just connected to the positive and negative. And what happens is when you press this, you get the full speed, and you can use this if you want the in-between speed. So by that I mean is this machine works really well on, thus far I've tried 12 volts and 24 volts. So 24 volts is very fast before, this is the 12. So you could actually put it up to 30. So that's the 12. And then if I use the foot controller, which you can see here, I can get right down to that. However, for long-term sewing, that foot will get very hot. So what is the solution that we've got here? I have ordered, so you see the connector, and this is this other one, which is the 24. I'll just plug it in, just like that. Super easy. Now it's 24. And that's a reasonable speed. I mean, I could go up to 30 volts. There are a couple of adjustable controller, voltage reducers. And what it means is I can plug one in and then turn a knob and have all the voltage from 3 up to 12. And what that means is whatever speed I want, I can just sew on it permanently and use the foot controller as I need. So if I need to do really slow speed for hours on end because I'm doing really complicated embroidery, I'll just reduce the voltage down, and then I'll use the doorbell to just run it at the slow speed. If I need something briefly slow, I can use this, and then go back to full speed. So I've got all the power and control I want. Now what I'd love to do is manufacture this into a completely perfect solution. So because this is a commercial stroke professional machine, what happens is I could bolt on the end motor type, the servo motor type. But, and I actually contacted some of the manufacturers, said, why can't you give me slower than, I think the slowest I found was maybe 400 stitches per minute. Now that would be something like this. Oop. Which for complicated embroidery and thread work is too fast. And they said, oh no, we don't do that. So I'm like, well, that won't do. So therefore I've come up with this solution which allows me to have the full speed that I want. And thus far it's working very well. The motor does get hot on the 24 volts, not burning hot, but it cools down pretty quickly. So you can take a break every few hours and you're fine. So I'm quite pleased with this. The machine's working perfectly and it's an interesting setup. Now I can throw this either on my servo motor, or if I don't want it on the servo motor, this bolts on here. But this contraption also comes off, just bolts on like any motor, and I can shove this on my 201 or any machine which takes a standard motor, bolt-on motor. What means I have full control off every machine, from high-speed sewing to low-speed sewing, and it makes it a lot more portable.